I can use this one. Acknowledgement of the country. We acknowledge the people of Wong Wurrung and Boon Wurrung language groups of Eastern Kulin Nation on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of RMIT University and the lands that I am speaking from today. We respectively acknowledge the First Nations people of the 5 Kulin nations, their ancestors, elders, past, present, and emerging. RMIT also acknowledges the traditional custodians and the ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we will conduct our business today. So with that, let me introduce our speaker today, who is Associate Professor Nalin Arachchilage. And Nalin is an Associate Professor in Cybersecurity in the School of Computing Technology at RMIT University, and Honorary Associate Professor in Cybersecurity at the University of Warwick, UK. Nalin holds a PhD in Computer Science Cybersecurity from Brunel University, UK. And before joining RMIT, Nalin was a Senior Lecturer in Cybersecurity at the University of Auckland, New Zealand, and a Senior Research Fellow at the La Trobe University, Australia. He also have worked at the University of New South Wales at the Australian Defence Force Academy, where he led the Usable Security Engineer Research Group. His primary research interests are in the intersection of computer security, human-computer interaction, software engineering, gamification, machine learning NLP, and the information system security in the area known as usable security and privacy engineering. Nalin's recent work has impacted the software industry globally, for example, related to enterprise security APIs. He has been invited speaker for various conferences, both nationally and internationally, and his research has been featured in various venues, including media outlets. We are very happy to have you, Nalin, here, and over to you now.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. Good morning. Literally, my name is Nalin Arachchilage. Often, along with them, the title of the talk that I'm presenting, but in this case, I've got a long title. So, empowering developers, software developers to build privacy-preserving software systems through gamification tools. We really need to help developers to implement systems that preserves end-user privacy. So developers need help. That's, think of situations, otherwise what we do is we design and develop systems and expect end user to consume the services through the systems that we design, that we build, while preserving their privacy, which is quite unfair if the system is not being designed. Systems are not being designed in a way that preserves end user privacy. Think of situations like how much of privacy we are trading off for our convenience. Back in the day, a famous guy, Meta CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, a Cambridge Analytica, UK-based company, had access to over 80 million US citizens' information through a plugin tools that they have developed. They use this information to manipulate the US government election. The threat level invading privacy could escalate even to as a threat to a national democracy. And privacy threats of AMI safe app driver. Think of situation in software, in a day-to-day basis. AMI safe app driver, or any safe tracking, self-tracking apps, which provides off-road or roadside assistance, especially for the newcomers, for driving. However, their GPS logs not only reveal how fast they drive, which ATMs that they stop at, which medical clinic that they have visited, where were you at right tonight? All of this information they are going to collect through the app. So leaving little nuggets of information from your life doesn't make a big deal, but at the end of the day, you will become the end product, which is atrocious. So, how do we actually handle this? There are different ways. We need to think of designing privacy solutions, privacy preserving software systems, taking mental models on board. How people really want to preserve their privacy while interacting with the software to consume whatever the services, like drivers, roadside assistant kind of things like that. How do they want to preserve their privacy while they're using that? Which is very important that we really need to understand the people's mental model. The other way of handling this is privacy policy. Think of situations like Twitter privacy policy back in 2021. So it's got 19 pages, but now, back in 2023, it's 9 pages. And how on earth would you expect someone to read all of these pages before signing up for the platform or the software or the website or such and such things? So therefore, those policies need to be designed and presented to the user in having readers in mind rather than lawyers protecting the company in mind. So a bunch of research scientists from Carnegie University experimented that. They explored if you take the average internet users 244 hours to read every privacy policy for every website that they have visited. Think of situations we are coming to work and how many software we're using, how many websites we are going to sign up with. And do we read each and every privacy policy to do that? And we've been literally forced us to sign up with that because there is no solution. Teams. Oh, sometimes the IT services ask us to use Teams over to Zoom or any other technology. In that case, do we have any options to do that? Of course not. So the organization culture, tools, technology, standards, we really need it. This is not a one-man show. This is a shared privacy, it's a shared responsibility. We really need to have a lot of people, social scientists, anthropologists, computer scientists, engineers, and everybody needs a hand in hand to grapple with this problem. So when we develop privacy policy and we present it to the user, we need to have the readers in mind. But at the same time, when they update their privacy policy, this is an example back in 2014, or 2016 actually, when WhatsApp announced they're going to go with their parental company, which is Facebook. How have they presented that to the end user? So literally, they would expect the end user to accept and continue the policy before even reviewing it. This is where their assumption is, because they don't want other people to understand how they are going to collect people's information, how they're going to process their information, how they're going to store their information, such as encrypted way. When we collect it, are we using transport?
Can everyone hear us here?
Yep. Sorry.
I think I'm hoping that the online
now,
audience
Gabby,
can
but
hear
yeah,
us.
Yes.
it froze.
They're saying that we can hear you. Great.
Yeah.
So we'll just do this one.
So when we have the policy, privacy policy, how do they communicate to the user? Literally, they would want the user to accept and continue even before they live in those policies. We do have general data protection regulations, fair information practices, privacy by design, privacy impact assessment, all of these things, concepts and privacy concepts have been designed and developed by lawyers, regulators, legislators. But then when it comes to embedding these concepts into software, this is where the problem is. They are struggling with it. Developers are not security experts. They are neither privacy experts. So they would struggle. They need help in this case. Sorry. Great. So another examples. So during the pandemic, we have all been experiencing uninvited guests attending our meetings through Zoom, Teams, and so on and so forth. This is a good example. We have all been experiencing uninvited guests attending those other Zoom teleconferences because we used to bring unfinished work or maybe started working from home where we use Zooms or other telecommunications or teleconferencing software applications. Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is not an exception for these kind of attacks. As you can clearly see, his Zoom IDs being publicly displayed. So the part of the problem here is, so there's a privacy glitch because whoever got the Zoom ID would be able to join his meeting. So the system needs, and without even a password, that's atrocious. The part of the problem is when we design technology, we are literally focusing on the performance and getting the requirements implemented into the system. We do not really think about, will that preserve end users' privacy, or will that keep them safe with the software that we design and developed? Another example is Uber hack. So the Uber concealed hacked that affected 57 millions of riders and drivers' information, such as an email address, user password, even other date of birth and so on and so forth, all of these information. Well, they did a very naughty thing, paying £75,000 to the hackers to erase this data, which is an unacceptable thing as a security and privacy expert or professionals to do that. So we wanted to dig deeper into the problem and try to understand why developers cannot embed privacy into the applications that they design and develop, where the end user would be able to consume the service through the applications we design and develop, while preserving their privacy. So we ran the experiment through the real world software developers, like 36 software developers recruited through GitHub. They have, each and everybody has got over 5 years experience of being in the industry developing software. So we gave them sort of instructions, a scenario related to healthcare issues. We wanted them to understand how they implemented various privacy solutions in a healthcare scenario. We just gave them a use case scenario, wanted them to think about how they implement various security privacy functionalities like onion routing, federated learning, differential privacy, you name it. And we identify all of these things, and we wanted to think about how they build various privacy enhancing technologies, privacy tools embedded into their systems. So we found this was a fact, and also as we've received this is work with my brilliant PhD students, and we received the best paper award from EASE, which is one of the top software engineering conference in 2018. So we realized that this is a practical issue. We have got GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, privacy impact assessment, privacy by design, fair information practices. All of these concepts are there. But then when it comes to software developers, when they embed those concepts into the application, they struggle a lot. So because they cannot differentiate engineering requirement from a privacy requirement. That was the fundamental issue that they had, because it is difficult to even quantify what the privacy requirements are. Privacy is not transparent to the developers, neither to end user. This is a huge problem that we are facing, because if it is a security thing, we know it's a binary thing, but then privacy one is going to be very contextualized. Unless a data breach occurred, we don't know what would be the privacy breach. It is difficult to quantify that. Even unlike security or unlike functional requirement when it comes to requirement engineering. So therefore, people find it difficult, software developers found it difficult to differentiate general software requirement, functional requirement from non-functional requirements, as well as a privacy requirement. So when they cannot do it, so then those privacy concepts do not matter. That may not work in software engineering context. So developers lack knowledge. They don't have knowledge about how to put those various privacy contexts into a software development context. Because lack of tooling support, because we have GDPR, but developers need a systematic way of implementing those GDPR into the software system that they develop. And also they should be able to test this in a systematic way, which was lacking. We didn't have enough tools. Still, we don't have much tools in this regard. So therefore, they will rely on the personal opinion. Colleagues or peers, they would rely on that. They think they would be able to consult it better, and they would rely on their peers' opinion and then implement those privacy mechanisms, because we haven't got any tooling support to evaluate whether or not we have successfully embedded GDPR or privacy acts into the software as the way we wanted. So therefore ended up implementing software with no or limited privacy at all. So we developed a systematic approach or data minimization techniques, systematically implementing helping software developers to implement privacy into the applications. The model consists of two phases. Understanding data. So once they understood the nature of the data, and they would be able to make a system design decisions. Think of situations like when we design systems, we should be able to understand how we are going to collect, what sort of data points that we are going to collect through the system, and how we're going to process that information, how we're going to store that information, such as encrypted way, how we're going to share this information. This is the cut down version of GDPR or any privacy act in Australia or New Zealand. That's the fundamental things that they have developed based on the GDPR, or refine the act based on the GDPR. So which is a cut down version of how we should collect information, how we should process, how we should store their information, how we should share this information with a third party organization. So in that case, we wanted software developers to understand the perceived privacy risk of data being collected through the systems. So we should be able to design system in a way they should collect information more mindfully. We calculate the perceived privacy risk based on the how sensitive that information, how visible that information, password or credit card information. Would you be comfortable sharing credit card information over your Facebook or Twitter platform, or sharing with the other people? Of course not. Think of another situation, and also relatedness. So username, password, but then we also need to think about how it relates to your case, your scenario. So that's all about understanding the threat modeling approach, whether or not leaving that little nuggets of information would invade my privacy or invade the end user privacy through the systems that we design. That needs to be thinking about it. So the relatedness is, think of situations like you're using Gmail or email address to communicate with one another or other colleagues or peers or friends. And it is meant to be sharing with the other people. However, would you be comfortable sharing your banking login ID with the other people? And also, you're not using Gmail address or your email address to log into a banking system. So the relatedness is very important, because otherwise you will be susceptible for two-factor authentication or phishing attack. So they could even send you a targeted phishing attack, pretending, impersonating, coming from a legitimate bank, which is actually not the legitimate one, could be the attacker's strategy of manipulating, enticing you to perform various actions, such as clicking on a link, downloading a malicious IT application, or responding to the emails, that particular phishing emails, with sensitive information, such as username, password, credit card information, and so on and so forth. Or tracking the traffic to a website which has the same look and feel of the legitimate website created by the attackers, and stealing all of your credentials, such as username and the password. So in that case, that is atrocious. So we need to be able to understand the perceived privacy risk. Once we understand that, we would be able to prioritize the risk, top priorities, middle and low ones, and then we can quantify the risk. Then some of the risk we can eliminate and or transfer, having an insurance kind of things, but the top ones we really need to deal with. This is where we want the software developers to take system design decisions, how we should collect these data points through the system, how we should design systems using various communication protocols like transport layer security, using various encryption to process and store that information in a secure manner. Or sharing this information, again, tunnel needs to be encrypted using transport layer security. Data should be encrypted using advanced encryption standards and so forth. We would be able to now make design decisions based on how we should collect information, how we should process, how we should store information, how we should share this information with a third-party organization. So we ran this application and we published this paper. Again, ACM Transactions, one of the #1 cybersecurity journal, and also we wanted to develop, because then developers found it, okay, this is fantastic, very nice, but we cannot, how can we use this? So this is where they found we wanted to develop because they need support, education support. So software developers need education too. So we develop a game-based learning framework as an educational intervention which enhance developers' secure coding behavior. In here, we are talking about how do we enhance their coding behavior where they can develop privacy-preserving software apps while with an intention to keep the end user safe while they're consuming those the services through the app that they develop. So here is the model we wanted to develop. So we wanted to enhance individuals, the developer secure coding behavior through motivation. But initially, you need to perceive such a threat, right? Otherwise, you don't really understand how do you give the individuals the threat perception based on the susceptibility and severity. If the Zoom bombing thing happened, what would be the financial loss or reputation damage to the organization through the software? A glitch we developed by the developers. Once they understand it, we are now incorporating these elements through the scenario, taking them through such a scenario and exposing them to. So this is how we're going to embed these elements into the real world gamification app. The underpinning science of the app is the particular one that we are talking about here, and also safeguard effectiveness. They also should feel learning federated, like onion routing, differential privacy, various privacy engineering technologies, privacy enhancing technologies should work. Safeguard cost. They also need to understand it takes time. To go through this process, it's not something, ticking a box and say that, oh, we implemented privacy into the application. So no, once they feel such a threat, okay, if there is a privacy glitch, this would be the reputation damage, this would be the financial loss to the organization that we are working with. And it directly affects us as well, because we lose the name, the brand name. So in that case, now we don't know what to do. So how do we enhance individuals, developers, efficacy, self-efficacy, confidence of how to implement those privacy into the app? So this is where we incorporated, through the various examples and scenarios, our data minimization model through a Bloom's taxonomy, which helps them to understand the concept and then process it, analyze it, and then put them into practice. So then they will get some hands-on experience and skills of developing privacy preserving apps. So the end user would be able to keep them safe. So this app, so the framework, we are in the process of empirically investigating through the real world software developers and trying to identify how they want to embed these various models into the application using user groups, like focus group. And we wanted to gain various groups and then invite them to come, and then what they could do is they would come up with various scenarios of how they want to preserve their privacy, threat perceptions, and how they want to learn these models. Putting the teaching content in a way interactable to the developers are quite a key thing, because otherwise the learning wouldn't take place if they find it quite cumbersome or awkward or find it difficult to understand. So they wouldn't really not happy with that. So incorporating that through the various focus groups, computer interaction methodologies, and also we wanted to then investigate. Once we developed the tool, we wanted to employ think aloud study, where the developers are interacting with the fine-tuned software product that we developed, and then we wanted to collect what kind of strategy that they would implement to they use to implement privacy into the application. So the good things about it and their weaknesses also we would be able to understand. So those weaknesses are the ones that the attackers are interested in. So because attackers want to break into the systems through manipulating the coding behavior. So this is where the attackers' interest is. So we wanted to develop a threat model understanding how the attackers would leverage their attack through manipulating software developers' coding behavior to leverage their attack successfully, invading end user privacy. So developing the threat model. And also we wanted to use AI-based powered tool here to feed, for example, reinforcement learning, where when they're interacting with it, we wanted to feed into the systems where it helps to, because different software developers, when they're interacting with the tool that we design and develop, sometimes they find, oh yeah, I already know this. Some people find, oh yeah, I didn't know about this. I would like to know a little bit more about it. So in that case, how do we, present that right teaching content to the user? So we can use reinforcement learning, like cube learning algorithms to empower, improve the algorithms which is running on that. This is another area that we are focusing at the moment. So that's the end of the talk today. I've been asked to prepare for about 30 minutes. I think I'm on time. And so huge thank goes to this work wouldn't be accomplished without my PhD and master's students. So the thank goes to them. I'm just presenting here. The whole hard work, the heavy lifters are them, and they are the heavy lifters. And also thanks to the industry collaborations, where we've got funding for this work from Optus, Data 61, and where I see other organizations, small funding, particularly the universities also helped us to develop that across that. I've been working with universities in the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So all of them, they've supported little grants, helped us. And also a thank to the academics that have got the opportunity to work with across the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, where I worked in the past, and also my bosses who helped me to come this far. Thank you so much. And I'll take questions if you have any.
The most significant challenge for you in getting software developers to adopt these privacy requirements, particularly when they're up against things like organisational pressure, time, budget, quality. Data sometimes is seen as, really a real asset to organisations. They want to maximise it rather than minimise it. So what do you see as the most significant challenge?
I think the culture. The culture is the key thing, because they find it. Some people are so energetic because when you join the organisation as a newbie, the fresh software engineer, so you've got like, you need to explore things, you've got a lot more energy and synergy to put things into real context. But at the end of the day, when you look at the top management, that they are actually want to hit the deadlines. And then sometimes they find it quite, they try to give the priority to the getting the requirements implemented rather than thinking about, because, privacy is not transparent to the software developers, neither to end users. So in that case, if there is a breach, we all can always say that, hey, users are the enemies. So that's the problem. The part of the problem is we always try to pass the ball to somebody and without taking the responsibility, because nobody can blame on the software development teams because they always have the answer. Sorry, did I answer to your question?
That's a real challenge, isn't it? Really, because you're really trying to change mindset.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to do.
That's right. Yeah, that will also depends on the financial model, the organization business model, right? Because everybody wants to drive their business, and they don't want to, rather than focusing on how to deal with the fine-tuned version of the software, their focus is to run the business and profit. So this is a huge problem that they have to understand. Yes.
Last week, NAB's National Australian Banks announced that they're introducing security by design for all of their in-house development. You mentioned about the culture. How do you change the culture when the culture is around security, but not privacy? But yet, I know the Information Commissioner is putting forward privacy by design as being a solution, but organisations are now, I suppose, a bit of a conflict. From a design perspective, where do they go? Is it the security by design route? Is it the privacy by design route? Is there some sort of hybrid?
I think that's a very good question. I would say threat modeling, because if you don't understand the threat, assume that even software developers, right, designers, architects, if we do not understand there's such a threat could exist, probably wouldn't put your effort into that. You wouldn't think of getting that implemented. So the threat modeling helps to understand the organizations, how our organization is susceptible for those attacks, not only security, but also privacy. How the attackers would leverage their attacks through manipulating software glitches. We really need to understand that. If we understand it, so then we can put our mindset into that. And then we know that we also understand, or we need to develop the risk quantification. So what would be the financial loss? What would be the reputation damage? If we understand that, we will put our heart and soul into that and say that, right, we need to get this implemented in a right way. Otherwise, we are leaving people's privacy behind. That opens up the back door for the attackers.
I suppose it's interesting because you're now getting statements from the Australian government through ACSC that organisations should just adopt a secure by design approach without doing that sort of threat assessment aspect.
Correct.
So it's interesting that organisations may just blindly follow an approach without actually realising the context of what they're looking at, or privacy issues.
Yeah, actually, there's the same question raised to Adam Shostak. He's the one who developed the threat model in Microsoft. So I've stolen that and an answer to your question, actually. So he was talking about the same thing. Adam and I worked together on developing one of these papers, actually. He developed the threat model in Microsoft for the first time, threat modeling tool. If you go on YouTube, you should be able to see a lot of materials and threat modeling that he has developed. But I think I see the nitty-gritty aspects of the problem. If you started off with the privacy by design or fair information practices or privacy impact assessment or all of these concepts, but then probably they've struggled to put them into the context. But we don't know where are the problem, because security and privacy things are very subjective. Even if you run the same business, like two organizations, two different universities, two different libraries, two different banks would operate their business very differently. One could internationalize business where the other target on the local market. So in that case, the operation is quite different. The threat model would be rather different to each one another. So in that case, that is very fundamental for us to understand what the threat model, and then start working from there to develop what sort of countermeasures through privacy by design. So the other thing, when it comes to the privacy by design, and how do we get developers, engineers, architects, designers, put them into practice? Where should they start? They need help. We have all these concepts. So otherwise, if we don't have, in software development environment, we started off working with the software development lifecycle, waterfall, spiral, agile, all of these things, we do have that. We know that it's all about how we collect information, requirement gathering, analyzing, putting them into, the design, like back-end design, front-end design, then use whatever the tool and get them implemented, tested, and deploy and turn on. We know that. So we have various methodologies helping them to systematically embed those requirements into the application. But do we have one for privacy? Of course not. The excuse is we can differentiate general requirements from a privacy requirement. And also privacy is not transparent. And we don't have trained people to do it. Software developers cannot do it. They're not privacy experts. We need to get privacy expert on board to do that. And how do they work hand in hand? Because those two people live in different bubbles. We really need to get the mindset. The culture is the important thing. Coming back to that, yes, sir.
Thank you very much, man. Great presentation. I know your calendar is full. I was thinking of with the coffee catch up, if you find space in the calendar. I come from a GIS background, right, where the focus is largely on location. So when you are developing software, location plays a key role. How do we design the system to reach location? Location information can be protected. Even the spatial and temporal granularity of our movement is being so obvious. Are there designs that tackle those sorts of issues around location? I'm on a research sabbatical, and I really want to know my dean where I am, so I just want to take some hints from you.
So I think one of the things, by storing that information in a secure way, we could use various encryption mechanisms like hashing algorithms to store that information, or maybe various encryption algorithms to store that safely. But the other one is based on the requirement. We really need to get users' mental model, who the users are. So while they're using the app, can we present them to, literally they can enable geolocation information. Whenever they're not using the app, so we can disable that geolocation information automatically. So this is where we can train the ML algorithms to automatically detect that. I mean, it is not an ML kind of things, but then it is also development stuff, because at the end of the day, users are the ones who are interacting with it and making their decisions. But then part of the problem here is users. So users are, because while we are traveling on the train, or buses, coach, and probably we have very sources. The way in the morning how we react, how we interact with the software is different to the afternoon, or maybe after a long day at 5 p.m. So in that case, we are probably exhausted. In that case, even when we present them to, ask them to make the decision, they find it, literally, that's not their concern, because their concern is to use the software. So I think depending on the requirement, the situations, we really need to think about how do we understand the requirement, and then through the end users, potential users, we can embed into the system. And this is where we would be able to identify the privacy glitches, privacy loopholes, bottlenecks. So that needs to be dealt with carefully, because this is where we really need to think about where the security controls need to be in place. So I believe that's kind of like a kind of interesting project. But then there's no one size fits all answer for these questions. A very subjective, very focused one. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. If you talk about location, one way to bring location is to make fuzzy rather than precise. And that could be undertaken using various filters. One can be zone filter or the name filters. When you're not looking for location-based services, that can be switched off. And, that one way you can design that. That's just that way. So other questions about the privacy. You talk about privacy, but it's a short construct and it's culturally sensitive. What you see privacy, quite different to what I see, and then culturally and socially varies. So how do you, as a computer scientist, developer, how do you capture privacy, that kind of social construct, and incorporate that in your algorithm? I just want to struggling to understand that bit there.
The right answer, if you really want the honest answer, there is challenging. It is very difficult to do that because generalizing that kind of findings and getting that evidence to implement system back to the system app is quite challenging because we have different practices, the cultural dimension. Sometimes what privacy means to kids is different from older people or middle-aged people. Age range, if you look at all the attacks, even the data breaches. So phishing is susceptible for literally the findings back in a few years ago. They found age range 18 to 25 are the segment more susceptible to phishing attack. In that age range, women are more susceptible. I mean, I'm talking about findings. So women are more susceptible than men about this. But this was done 10 years ago, a decade ago, right? So generalized, this is the challenge with not only privacy, but also security as well. We cannot generalize. There is no one size fits all answer. So therefore we cannot develop one software and ask people to use it. This is where the hope is, and also the challenge as well. But if I try to get my head around and try to give an answer to this, so whatever the system we develop, either small to medium, large scale businesses, we really need to think about end users' mental model. Take users into considerations when we design systems, because we are designing systems not for the sake of it, we just design a system for people. So therefore, having end users' mental model embedded into the system is the key thing. And also education, training, professionals. The system should be designed for people, the interaction. So this is where we talked about the explainable security, presenting how the system works to the people so they really they have a better understanding. So all the steps. And then they also need to be able to understand perceived privacy risks, security risks. And if they understand it, if we can demonstrate, explain through the interface, so they would, have extra precaution, to how to protect ourselves against this. So you need to get people's mindset. But again, there's a challenging thing. Sometimes while they're traveling on the training after, long day, probably they might be exhausted once you receive any Facebook request or something. You just tap on it. Sometimes you did not want to accept it, but then you accidentally, because of the fat finger issue. So, and there's no way you can go back and find out who you accepted recently, but it's a little bit more steps you need to accomplish it. Because the systems are not being designed by looking at people, because Facebook really didn't want to think about it in that way. They just want to get more people interacted, socialized through the game. Otherwise, they would have easily done it. They could afford to have lots of UI designers, security specialists, usable security engineers. So did I answer your question? So at least I touched upon.
Nalin, we have a few questions online,
Okay.
a few comments. So Jonathan, maybe a comment. Developing an adversarial mindset is really important, thinking of how the system could be exploited. So maybe comment, but coming to myself, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I have a question regarding the implementation of security practices and DevOps. During your work experience or even lecturing journey, have you noticed whether companies have genuinely started adapting DevOps or DevSecOps? If not, what are the actions or precautions did the organization start to take or practice in order to keep up to date with cybersecurity trendy methodologies?
Answer is no. We talked to lots of software developers, and pretty much a few of my students worked on one security engineering, one previous engineering, DevOps, say, around around 5-6 PhD students and master students worked in this. We haven't encountered that. So the part of the problem is a cultural issue. And also, in order to, we really need to get this message across the community. Embedding privacy or security into the application, which is very important. And it is not only developers, we really need to encourage the top management. The culture is the thing. We need to get that message across the community. So the best way of doing that, getting the message across, and training, awareness, professionalism, education, so that those elements really need to think about carefully when we try to help developers get the privacy into the application or security into the application. Did I answer to the question?
I think so. So Tracy asked, from past industry experience, at the end of the day, often business product owners get the final say on the architecture choices. How do you envision the framework would fit in or align with business reality, legislation, and operating context?
Having the communication, having a literally, this is a shared responsibility, not individual's responsibility. So we really need to get the business analysis. So when we gather the requirement from the client, so this is software engineering life cycles, we gather the information and then we analyze this information. This is where we really need to think about where are the security, where are the privacy, how we need to get them implemented into the so because we are not actually, sometimes I've seen that companies actually they're testing privacy, testing security by quality assurance engineers, which is not the right way of doing it. And without embedding privacy or security into the application, how would you test it? So we have a full sense of security because that demonstrates we don't know what we are doing, I'm afraid. So it should start from, analyzing the requirements.
From top to bottom.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all from the online. Anything more from you all here? No? Right.
I suppose,
That's one.
I suppose just thinking of this example of the quantum cell, do you have any observations or reflections when frequent flyer information was shared with Qantas customers who are just logging into their system of other users and